All right, season 2, episode 20, Humbug. Which,
Humbug.
you know, when you saw this, I would think this would be like a Christmas episode, right? Well, Ebenezer Scrooge, but that's not what humbug means, according to the definition in the dictionary.
Yeah.
It means like deception, deceptive, which that's interesting. I mean, I've never even thought about it. I always just thought that humbug was something. I never really put any thought into like why Ebenezer Scrooge says that, but humbug is like Christmas is deceiving. It's deceptive.
Oh, yeah. I always thought that was just like literally his catchphrase.
Like bah humbug. Like it. This is you
that's
guys
like,
have
that's
been
like being like lies. Like
yeah, because
lies.
like you know, obviously in that story, especially the best iteration in Muppets Christmas Carol. It's like what Ebenezer Scrooge says. He says, like, what does he say? He says, like, it's a something to, like, pick a man's pocket every December the 25th.
It's a poor excuse to pick a man's pocket every December the 25th.
It's like, it's deceptive. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I've just never, it gives a whole new clarity
such a good
to
movie.
his line of humbug. I never thought. I didn't think that was an actual word. I just thought it was something that he said.
That's what I mean. I thought it was just like his little catchphrase, like his little like humbug. Like I don't know. I literally always only ever thought about it in terms of Ebenezer Scrooge and A Christmas Carol.
So I thought this was going to be a Christmas episode because of that, and then when it wasn't, they said something about that, and then I looked it up, and it's like no, it means deception, like deceptive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that word actually means something. I don't know why I've never looked it up. I've never thought about it. But I just thought it was Ebenezer Scrooge. Anyways, moving on from that. I like the subversion here in the opening where these kids they're playing in a pool and there's this thing lurking and stalking in the shadows. And then we see this, quote unquote, deformed man with scaly skin, and he jumps up, and the girls scream, or the kids scream out, and then they're like, "Oh, Daddy," and it's like it's their dad, and he has this skin condition, and he's part of the sideshow for the circus or the carnival. I think it's carnival.
I think it's
right?
carnival. Yeah, I don't think it's a circus actually.
Because they're carnies.
Yeah.
Carnival, and then. The thing that was stalking in the shadows was not him.
Right.
It's actually Belial from Basket Case.
Yeah, literally.
Pretty much. Do we ever see this thing, like, dead on?
Yeah.
We do for a second?
We do for a few seconds.
We watched this, like, over a week ago, but I know we kind of see it, like, scurry past the car and all of that.
Yeah, we see it for a flash when it attacks somebody, like, later on in the episode.
Yeah. It's not on screen very long.
It's not. It's definitely not. But it's freaky looking, and it definitely reminded me of Basket Case, for sure. I like that, opening as well. I think that's a fun opening, and I really like this episode actually. I think this might be one of my favorite episodes of the series so far. I think that it's like I'm a big fan of like carnival aesthetic and like just vibes in general, and I really like kind of the commentary in this episode around how all of the people that are a part of the carnival for various like ways that they look or like different weird talents that they have, and being like judged on those things versus just the fact that they are people, because obviously there's a pretty dark history to carnivals and like the quote unquote like the freak shows and stuff with people who have disabilities and whatnot being put on display to like mock and be like mean towards
ridicule.
Yeah, which is awful. Like I hate that.
And plus it adds this double entendre, right, with the word humbug. Because you got this like opening where it's a deception, right? Where it's like this is the monster, and then it's like no, it isn't. It's a different thing, and then it's the deception of the twin who knows what's going on and doesn't do anything about it, and then there's the deception of like don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. It's very deceiving. Yeah. It's a humbug to like look at somebody and think that they're evil based on their appearance.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of like humbuggery going on in this episode. So the title actually fits perfectly if that really is like its meaning. So
Yeah.
I like that. And yeah, this is kind of like a classic X-Files episode that was syndicated and looped on repeat. This is one we saw fairly often, and I remember it a good amount because you have the guy who plays the brother who has the attachment on his side. He's an actor I've seen in so many things.
So many things,
right?
yeah.
Probably my favorite film with him is Better Off Dead with John Cusack, where he's his teacher, his math teacher, and he asks him if he can take Beth on a date. That would be so funny. But also you have the puzzle piece guy who at that time it was always like there was like he was always ended up in things like in magazines or in movies when they needed like a freak or something. He got his whole body done in like the outlining of puzzle pieces, and then just slowly but surely over the years, I don't know what his game plan was, but he got each one of them filled in with blue. I don't know what the like reasoning or like what the decision was of like, is it every week? Is it every like time he does something specific? Is it like, why does he color?
Maybe it's every year.
No, there's way too many pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Every month, maybe. But for something, I'd have to look him up to see why he colors in these pieces randomly. But I saw him years ago, and I think he was like completely blue at this point. Like he had them all filled in now.
Okay.
Or at least close to it. But in this one, he has some, but like not that many are colored in yet.
Yeah, he's definitely not fully colored. This episode also has...
He's going to join the Blue Man group.
Maybe that was
Remember
his
those
goal.
guys?
Yeah. This episode also has the hotel owner who is the actor from Twin Peaks who plays the little man from Another Place, who has that really iconic dancing scene in the Red Room with Dale Cooper. I'm pretty sure that actor lives in Florida because years ago I remember like hearing that actor is like, he has like, he's like crazy smart. Like he has like some degree in like, I don't know, like engineering, like aerospace engineering or something like that. That's like, I don't know what it is. But one of the reasons that he works with David Lynch in Twin Peaks is because he can just like, he taught himself how to like speak backwards basically. So for Twin Peaks people, that's, you know, it's always fun to see actors from Twin Peaks in X-Files and vice versa, because David Duchovny is also in season 2 of Twin Peaks, and I feel like Twin Peaks really paved the way for X-Files. X-Files is obviously a much more like mainstream show compared to Twin Peaks, but I think that people who were watching both of them back in the day, you know, they have very similar vibes in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's just fun that he's in there. Which also, side note, I asked another person if they had heard of X-Files, and they hadn't, and I was like shocked. There's been like 2 people at my work that did not know what X-Files, like they'd never heard of the X-Files, and I was really surprised because I thought it was just such a iconic 90s show that even if you didn't watch it, you'd at least have heard about it. But they did not, so I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive that he taught himself to talk backwards, but I would think he would be an expert at small talk. I was waiting for that joke the entire time you were talking.
Like weren't even listening.
I was just like waiting, and I was like, I have to reset up the joke because you got so far away from it that I was like, I was sitting here barely listening because I was trying to figure out a way to reintroduce the setup in a natural way. Yeah. And I do that all the time on the channel. Where I'm like, you say something, and then I'm like, oh, but then I don't want to jump in because I don't want everyone in the comments. It's like, he talks over her. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm so tired of hearing that. That's funny. and I don't care.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's cheap. It's not cheap. It's funny. Okay? I'm a genius.
You are.
No, I'm not a genius. I'm an asshole. That's the reality. Okay, we got a lot of mention. Oh, okay. So, the guy who's like hammering freaking nails into his nose and all this shit.
Yeah.
He buries himself. So I don't really understand this. So they're at the funeral of the Gator Man, and the ground is completely still, like, untouched. And then you hear, like, the coffin starts rattling. So then they, like, move it, and he comes up from under, but, like, it's not pre-dug.
I think
and B, he, like, must have dug his way
Yeah.
up and through.
Yeah, he like tunneled.
He tunneled?
He tunneled from somewhere else and then like came up through there.
Because don't they typically have the grave already dug at that point?
I thought so.
I've never been to a funeral. I've only seen them in movies.
But I don't think I don't think we stayed for the burying of the casket. I don't remember.
You didn't come up and like
unfortunately.
put a handful of dirt on the thing and all
No,
that. These are all movie things.
Yeah, I was gonna
sure.
say I've always seen in movies that just like the square is already or the rectangle is already there, pre-dug, so that they can just lower it down in. So I don't know. Maybe we're totally wrong on that. Maybe they don't do that.
But you can see for a while around it. Like, how much was he tunneling?
I know.
He tunneled like 40 feet. He's Andy Dufresne.
Yeah.
He's tunneling out of Shawshank.
He's
dedicated. And how did he even know where his gravesite was if he tunneled that far?
I know. You would think he would need to put like
he
something
got
in.
literally
so he could,
right up.
like perfectly
straight up
yeah.
in there. Like, I don't understand how he got under the... that's an X-Files into itself.
It is.
I would have... If I was Mulder, I would have been like, Scully, we got a new case. How the hell did this guy do this? He just came back from the dead.
I really like this scene, though. I think it's a very fun... Like, even though it's a funeral and it's sad, but it's also very campy. Like, them looking around at all the different people there, and then, like, when Mulder turns and, like... looks up at the guy next to him.
Oh, yeah.
That he, like, I guess did not notice sitting next to.
Yeah, it's definitely a funny funeral.
Yeah.
And it reminds me a little bit of the funeral in the Robin Williams film Toys. When there's, like, a laughing coming from the coffin, and so they open it up, and it's like a barrel of laughs.
Oh, I love that movie.
And they all start laughing.
Yeah. That's a great movie.
It's a wonderful film that almost
gosh.
no one has ever seen or talks about. I've never seen a person bring it up ever. Never once in my entire life. So it's a very overlooked film.
Good.
A lot of mention of the Fiji mermaid, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's like what they are.
I don't know what the hell that is.
Started like, well, they talk about it in the beginning, because it is like it's like a very famous like faked cryptid.
Yeah.
That somebody literally like sews together, you know, and it's not real at all.
Okay. It's the X-Files. It's a television show. It's fun. You don't want to overthink it. But this is like stuff where, and this happens all the time in this show, but this is one of the more noticeable ones that I've ever seen in this show. But it happens in almost every episode, and I want to point it out here maybe for the first time. So either Mulder is straight up clairvoyant, or we are supposed to like just accept the fact that he can make tremendous leaps of like observation, right? So it happens throughout, and plenty of shows do this, don't get me wrong, especially like medical shows, where it's like, how did you get from he has a toe ache to he has some insanely rare condition that no one in the hospital has ever heard of, and they're like, he has this, which means that it comes up through this, tendon, which is attached to this, and you're like, what? But this is one of those episodes. So the way that the Fiji mermaid thing even comes into this episode is because it's on the menu at the restaurant that the sheriff takes them to.
Yeah.
And he's like looking at the menu and he's like, who drew this? And he's like, I'll take you there. What? This is not part of the case. Cops do not go out, look at menus, see a cryptid drawn on there alongside of many other cryptids and other like things, and you're like, hold on, why is there a mermaid here? We gotta question this guy, and then that guy's questioning is actually going to lead us to the not Fiji mermaid. It's going to lead us to the what are these? Conjoined twin. Like, this is such a leap. It's actually hilarious.
I think that this is very common in X-Files because there's a lot of, like, synchronistic events that happen to Mulder and Scully, and it does lead them down the right path, and that is part of, like, the vibe of the X-Files, is that they are, to some extent, being led along with intuition. Especially Mulder, but
if we were to take the episode, I forget what it's called now. I think it's called Blood. Pretty sure that's what it's called. The episode where the dude sees the electronics and they're telling him to kill. And then Mulder comes in to the first case, and it's the elevator one. And he comes in and they're like investigating it, and there's a couple scratches on the screen. And he's like, was this here before? And he's like, he like is very honed in on this, like a couple scratches on a public machine.
Yeah.
That would have stuff like that. Do you know how many fucking like public areas I've been to where like electronics are scratched or broken, or like something has a scratch in it? You're not gonna like go, I wonder if it has something to do with the electronics. Like, this is so absurd. It's the fun of the show because he is straight up clairvoyant.
He has
the only explanation.
He is a very intuitive detective.
This is beyond intuition.
I think that there is something a little bit more outside the realm of the ordinary happening when Mulder investigates things, because
Mulder himself is an X-File.
He doesn't do it all the time. I would say that there's definitely been episodes where like Mulder is ignoring very obvious evidence, or like even just very weird evidence, and Scully's the one that's like, something's going on. But for the most part, like, Mulder notices like very small details to things, and he makes connections, and I do think that it has whether you want to call it clairvoyant or like some kind of psychic thing going on, like, he has something like that going for him. But I think that that's part of the fun of the X-Files.
Yeah. There's also a really great scene here that I actually thought was pretty witty, just because it's like a good commentary on something. And this is the scene where the guy with the conjoined twin comes up to Scully's trailer, and she's looking into his robe at his deformity, and he's staring into her robe at her boobs.
Yeah.
And they both like catch each other looking at each other's private parts.
Yeah.
And it's like, typically the woman would have the high ground of like, what are you looking down my top? And it's like, you ain't got shit to say now that you're looking into his shirt and trying to see like what he's got going on.
Yeah, I think it is really
it's
good
commentary.
Like,
Scully, you got caught. Because, like, he gets a free peek because you're taking a peek.
Yeah, because, women obviously do deal with that a lot, of being like ogled and their bodies being looked at, lewdly against their wishes. But people who are disabled or who look different, I get that as well.
I call bullshit on that to a degree, okay? I'm sorry, and we've talked about this on the channel, but there is literally no, like, actual purpose to wearing cleavage. There is no, like, pragmatic purpose to that. So, when you're wearing, most girls do, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not shitting on anybody for wearing a shirt with cleavage, but most women wear shirts where you can see their tits. Right? And if a guy is looking at them, you are putting them out there. Like, there is no reason to show your tits like that. Period.
Well,
like, there's no real reason to show.
That,
you know what I mean?
But there's a big difference.
So there is a desire to have him looked at, but not ogled.
I think that
there's a difference, right?
There's a big difference between, like, you're wearing flattering clothing that you like and that accentuates your body versus somebody, like, staring at your chest instead of your face.
But if it's flattering, then people are going to look.
Just
right?
because, but there's a staring. There's a
That's
big
what I'm
difference.
saying. There's a difference
big
between
difference.
ogling, where you're just like...
What they're doing in this scene...
that's different than just being
they're staring at each other, and I think it's the same thing when people look differently because of disabilities, because their bodies are shaped differently. Like, of course you're going to notice, because it's not something that you would maybe see all the time, and those people, though, have to go their whole lives getting attention that they might not want, you know? Because there's definitely, like, assholes out there that will be, like, super rude and awful when people are disabled or whatever.
I mean, if you don't want a guy looking down your top, then you shouldn't be wearing super low-cut cleavage shirts, period.
But, I mean it's
I'm
also
sorry,
not too much to
true.
ask guys to just also not, like...
You're not... You're living in a fantasy world. That's not going to happen. Will a lot of guys be respectful and not look? Sure. But there's always going to be guys who, when a girl has a super low-cut top, they're going to stare longer than the girl wants them to. Mm-hmm. And if it's at all, if you're like, I don't want anyone looking at it at all, then you should not be wearing cleavage shirts, period.
I think the thing that you maybe don't understand is that it doesn't really matter what girls wear. Like, it's not necessarily like only the girls that have like cleavage showing get stared at by men. Like, women will be wearing completely modest clothing that does not like really reveal things, and they will still have guys that stare at them and make comments and do things like that. So I don't think it comes down to like what you're wearing. I think it's the behavior that men think is acceptable, really.
What is the point of cleavage?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with people wearing cleavage.
I understand, but what is the point of it?
I don't know why it has to have a point.
Why do we... But you wear it that way. Why?
Because it looks nice.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily... just because somebody is wearing cleavage doesn't mean, like, I'm wearing it for men. There's plenty of lesbians that wear it. Sure.
That's the point of it. It's sexy, which means that it's sexually arousing, which means that men are going to gravitate towards it because it's sexually arousing. That's the whole point of it. It's literally why it's there. You would cover it up completely if you did not want it. Like, if you were not trying to look sexy, there's literally no point to wear cleavage without trying to look sexy.
I get what you're saying.
And when a guy thinks you look sexy and looks at you, and you don't like the guy's look because you're like, he's gross, then it's like, oh, how could he? And it's like, but you want this guy to look, but you don't want this guy to look. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not saying that people shouldn't be aware of like what clothing they're wearing and the attention that they're going to get from it, because obviously that is something that happens. But I don't think that just because somebody is wearing a certain outfit that they deserve to be treated differently.
It's not about deserved. It's about realizing the situation and saying, because you're like, guys should, in a perfect world, guys wouldn't do this. It's like, we don't live in a perfect world. You wear a low-cut top, guys are going to fucking look down the top. That's all there is to it. And yes, they're going to look at you no matter what you wear, but they're going to look more. You think that if you were to wear, like, something that was, like, loose-fitting and didn't show off your physique at all, you would get as much attention as the girl in a miniskirt with a low-cut top and huge tits? There's no way that the two are equal. I'm not saying you should dress however the hell you want. We've gotten way off the rails with this.
Yeah.
But the point is like...
that I feel is, like, really hard to have, too, because, like... I don't know. I feel like we've had it multiple times. Yeah, I don't think that you are meaning anything disrespectfully at all. But it's just, like... It's really frustrating because women have fought for so long to be able to wear what they want. And it's, like, this kind of... thinking of like it's not a perfect world, like men are always going to look. It's like I think we should have a higher standard for people, and I don't think it's only men. I think this should apply to women equally, of course, but I just don't think people should be subject to that kind of behavior.
But if I'm walking around outside with my shirt off and I'm like buff and chicks are like ogling me, which chicks 100% do, I don't know. Anyway, let's get off the subject because we could spend an hour talking about this. But yeah, I mean, as I had said, I'll end on this. Women should wear whatever the hell they want, but there's reality, and I think that everyone needs to acknowledge reality. It's not that we like accept it in this, or not accept. It's not that we condone it. right? But we have to understand, like, a girl doesn't walk home alone at night down a dark alley. And it's like, well, guys shouldn't rape women. I agree, but you still shouldn't walk down a fucking alley at night, because the chances of you getting raped go up exponentially. It's the world we live in. So there's facing reality, and there's living in a fantasy world. Anyway, moving on. The sleight of hand Scully does with the bug was adorable.
Yeah, it's a really great scene.
And then this is like, I think when X-Files is at its best is either when it's dealing with something like really intriguing in a horror sense, because I love the horror of X-Files, but then a complete opposite end of the spectrum, and maybe my favorite moments in all of X-Files is the humor. When there's like a real good humorous bit between Mulder and Scully, this is always peak X-Files moments for me.
Yeah.
And when she grabs the bug and like pretends to eat it, and we're like, oh, and Mulder's like, and then she's like, I had a magician, like I had a
magician uncle.
No, and like an amateur magician uncle.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Mulder like pulls something else out that he has from the guy, the nail. He pulls out the nail with the blood on it, and he's like, everyone has an amateur magician for an uncle.
Yeah.
That, mwah,
it's great.
Perfect. Perfection. Mm-hmm. I love that scene. That is like Mulder and Scully personified. I love everything about that moment. It's like 10 seconds, but it perfectly illustrates why this show works so wonderfully. It's because of those two and how they play off of each other. And when they're funny, they're hilarious.
Yeah, I agree.
And you're just like, please be together already.
I know.
You guys are too perfect for each other. Scully falls for a trick of $5 for nothing in the box. There's a lot of humor in this episode. This is definitely probably the funniest episode of the show up till this point so far. The funniest episode for me that I remember is the one in the reboot series. The Mulder and Scully meet the Weremonster episode, which I was like laughing so much that I was like crying. I thought it was so funny. The sheriff is the dog-faced boy, so that's why he is so protective over them, because he used to be one.
Yes.
I guess his hair fell out. He has male pattern friggin' dog baldness.
Well, he said it was just on his like face and head, and the rest of his body is still super hairy.
Yeah. And then how does this end? The puzzle piece guy eats the twin, which, you know, I didn't realize that that was supposed to be a reveal, because when he's laying there, it's very obvious to me he ate him.
Yes.
And then when he like says it's probably something I ate, because it's the only time he speaks in here, and when they gave each other the look for a second, I thought they were giving each other the look of like, oh, he can talk. And then I was like, oh wait, they're giving each other that look because they're now realizing he probably ate the twin, because they're still looking for him. Like, for some reason it didn't register to me. I thought they were just looking for evidence of like the murders, and then I must have just missed the line. But then I realized like, oh, they think the twin's still out there, alive. And Scully and Mulder are now realizing that guy probably ate him.
Yes.
I don't know how he ate something this big in seconds without leaving any trace.
I don't know.
That's
thought
insane.
That he, like, because the twin was, like, looking for another, like, host.
He like, dug into him and...
No, I thought that's, like, what they were going for, is, like, he ate him so that they could, like... I don't know that would work at all, but like,
him?
yeah. No. I don't know if that's the plan, but maybe the twin is dead. But in my mind, when this episode was over, like, that's what I was thinking, is like the twin like wanted him to eat him.
Well, sure. So the twin is killing people because he's trying to merge with them.
Yes.
He's trying to like cut them open and like have a spot for him to go into so that he can survive, because he can't survive very long without his brother, and he wants to be away from his brother.
Yeah.
Once and for all, and I guess he's not intelligent enough to realize that that's not gonna work. But I think that the puzzle piece guy is just getting attacked. He's a geek. That's what he is. But he's getting attacked, and then he just eats it as like a defense. But how you could eat something that's like this big without leaving any blood, without eating any trace, and do it in seconds before Mulder and Scully show up is pure absurdity. Because we see it, it's fairly big, and even if it wasn't and we didn't see it, like, it's taking down fully grown humans.
It just looked like
has
his
to be big.
stomach was moving when they like showed him.
Yeah,
with,
but
like,
how
his
did he
big-
get into him?
I don't know.
That's
don't
another
know.
X-File.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's that. Sorry for the 20-minute discussion about, like, sexism and rapey vibes that I give off, I guess.
No.
Anyway. All right, that's that. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.